शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननम् अहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानां एकदन्तमुपास्महे एकदन्तमुपास्महे. Now your kind attention to Sri Prasanna Kumar garu.
Subbarao garu, Vice Chancellor Raju garu, Dr. A. Sharma garu, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Center for Policy Studies and on my own personal behalf, I extend a very cordial welcome to all of you to this evening's book release function. It's my pleasure now to request former General Manager, Indian Railways, Sri Ramarao garu, to present a bouquet to the Vice Chancellor and convey our thanks for so graciously giving this venue at a very short notice. Thank you, Raju garu. My very pleasant duty to the leading dermatologist and one of the patrons of culture, Dr. Ramarao garu, to present a bouquet to Dr. E.S. Sharma garu. The most glamorous man of Indian Navy, the ageless, the most dynamic, one of the most cultured persons of Vizag, Commodore Gomes, will present a bouquet to Mr. Subbarao. It's our good fortune that the venue that we originally fixed, Public Library Hall, had to be shifted, and at a very short notice, very appropriately, very fittingly, one of the most distinguished students of Andhra University, one of the most distinguished professors of Andhra University, whose book is being released. He is being honored today by the Vice Chancellor of Andhra University. First of all, Professor Shastri turns 90 today. He wanted to come, but he could not make it. His son wrote a very warm letter, and Shastri garu himself spoke to me and Subbarao garu this morning when we called him up. And thanks to technology, Mr. Shastri's message direct from Mumbai.
Mr. President, distinguished chief guests, Professor Prasanna Kumar, ladies and gentlemen, I offer my sincere apologies for my inability for health reasons to attend this present function. The Center for Policy Studies, under the able leadership of Professor Prasanna Kumar, has provided a forum for the intellectuals, academics and experts to interact, focusing on issues and policies of contemporary relevance. I take this opportunity to thank Professor Prasanna Kumar and the readers of the Bulletin for their generous indulgence all these years. I am not exaggerating when I say that their goodwill has immensely helped me to keep myself intellectually active in my post-retirement life through exploring and sharing new vistas of knowledge. I wish the function all success. Thank you.
Professor M.N. Shastri, whom you just saw on the screen, was born on August 5th, this day, 1925. Studied at the Andhra University, where he obtained the MSc degree in 1947. and DSc in 1951. He went to the United Kingdom on a Government of India scholarship for higher studies and took the PhD in chemistry from Durham University in 1958. Joining the Andhra University chemistry department in 1948 as a demonstrator, Dr. Shastri became reader in 1959, professor in 1966, and carried out extensive studies in the fields of volumetric methods, chromatography, precipitations from homogeneous solutions, chemical kinetics, and tracer methods. He organized the first full-fledged MSc course in nuclear chemistry in the university and was the founder vice president of Indian Association for Nuclear Chemists and Allied Sciences. Professor Shastri was mainly responsible for establishing the Center for Nuclear Techniques in Andhra University with financial support from the Atomic Energy Commission. He was visiting professor at La Trobe University, Australia in 1976 and adjunct professor San Jose State University, United States in 1986. As fellow of the National Academy of Sciences, Professor Shastri received the P.C. Ray Gold Medal of the Calcutta University for contributions in analytical chemistry and the Dr. M.V. Ramanaya Memorial Award from Indian Association for Nuclear Chemists and Allied Scientists for lifetime achievements and contributions to radiochemistry. Professor Shastri, after retirement, when he was staying here, I must share with the Vice Chancellor that our great university produced many stirring moments. As a student, I was always an admirer, an envious admirer of Dr. K.R. Srinivasa Iyengar's peripatetic lectures on the beach when his daughter Prema and son Ambirajan used to accompany him. We read about Aristotle, but we saw Iyengar as student taking walk along the beach, giving lectures to his son Ambirajan, alas is no more, and Prema, who is one of the most distinguished women writers in India today, living in Srirangam. That was when we were students. Later on, while in the university, serving in the university, living in Sirupuram, I used to see another spectacle every day which made me really smaller, humbler. It was a very humbling experience. 3 outstanding intellectuals taking their morning walks. Padma Bhushan Professor P. Koteswaram, a doyen among meteorologists, internationally renowned professor of law who brought prestige to the Andhra University at Yale, Professor B.S. Murthy, and Professor M.N. Shastri. They used to take walk in the morning. We used to watch them from a distance and admire. Today, I am particularly happy that the function scheduled to be held in the public library, of course, Mr. Subbarao is president of that also. I always say, what is it that Mr. Subbarao doesn't hate? He is a lifetime mayor. Therefore, wherever he is, naturally he represents the entire Vizag. President of ACA, president of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, president of this, that. And so Mr. Subbarao, a distinguished student of law. We're all alumni, Vice Chancellor Garu. We're all alumni. Dr. Sharma, nuclear physics student. Mr. Subbarao, president of Law Society. I wanted to say, if the collector comes, I would say it. The collector, Mr. Yuvraj, is also an alumnus by proxy. Because though he is dealing with politicians and files every day, every minute he is breathing academic air. The intellectual vigor that university gives him, that makes, I think, Yuvraj really feel young. He is Yuvraj. I wish he were here. Now, we chose this function today mainly because, actually, Professor Shastri's articles, his first article when we started the bulletin in 1996, Center for Policy Studies was started on Gandhi Jayanti in 1995. In 1996, on Gandhi Jayanti, we launched the bulletin. the bulletin, 5th issue, Professor Shastri's first article appeared. It was in 1997 June. Nuclear energy, friend or foe, that was the article. And believe me, his articles were collected and we got them released in 2007. The title being, the copies, because we don't price them, we don't sell them, we only print them, and we are not receiving any funds from any government agency, only the goodwill of local peoples. And therefore, this is the first book, Profligate Civilization, meticulously researched and beautifully written book by Professor Shastri. It's on energy and environment. 4 years later, I did not leave him. I said another edition must come. He was writing on world demographic trends. So we brought out this book in 2011. And believe me, something extraordinary happened. There is a witness to it. I have invited him to this meeting. I will also request the President to present a bouquet, a token of our appreciation. Mr. M.K. Kumar of Satyam Offset Imprints, who has been publishing our bulletin and all our books. One afternoon he was astonished to receive a call from the President of India. Somebody said, we are not able to get the Center for Policy Studies number. We don't put any number except the Policy Studies Center number and then the number of the press, telephone number. And so he said, Dr. Kalam would like to speak to so-and-so, so-and-so. Immediately, an astonished, flabbergasted Kumar is here. And Kumar immediately said, I don't know, sir, what is it I can do? I am so-and-so, I can. Please give my congratulations to Professor Shastri for this excellent work, he said. This. So I took the liberty of informing Dr. Kalam, who is now quite busy as he was. I wrote to him, sir, we are releasing Professor Shastri's third book, Nuclear Genie. And lo and behold, I got a letter wishing the function every success and conveying his greetings to Professor Shastri. Now, 2-3 points and I shall sign off. What is this Nuclear Genie? What is this book? It's a collection of 16 articles, 14 of which have been carried. The current one, the bulletin will be released. These 16, Professor Shastri said, no, the 16th article will appear in the December issue. Let us wait till then. Then I said, sir, we don't wait. Because August 5th is your birthday and you have written on Hiroshima, Nagasaki. August 6th is Hiroshima Day and therefore we must release it. And Andhra University is the right place and the Vice Chancellor is a very generous man. I said we will definitely have it in the campus. And so he agreed. Believe me, he finished the 2 articles in 15 days. He said, I am taking the help of my grandson. His son, in fact, wrote a letter this afternoon saying that, thanking the center, he sent an email. My father, Professor M.N. Shastri, has been keeping us updated on various significant events taking place thanks to your institution, your colleagues and you. He gives total credit to an institution for his remaining active till now. We would have been happy to bring him along to Visakhapatnam for the occasion, but for the fact that he may not be able to undertake this training. So on behalf of all of us, on behalf of the university also must feel very proud today. It's Vice Chancellor's privilege to be here, and therefore we are going to release this book. Now, 2 points about this, the importance of this book. One, I'm going to really face a problem from Dr. A.S. Sharma. That's later on. Dr. Shastri narrates right from the beginning the genesis of nuclear explosion. And very brilliantly, he writes about that famous July 16th, 1945 atomic explosion, Robert Oppenheimer, the man who was responsible for the scientists always feel very sad and bad about politicians. When Michael Faraday was very happy that electromagnetic induction was discovered, the political leaders went to him and said, "What is the use of this?" And Faraday became very angry and said, "It will get you a lot of money. Don't worry about that." And so when Oppenheimer did it, when he was taken to Roosevelt, it seems Roosevelt said, "What is the use of this? Can it kill?" And Oppenheimer was astonished to hear from the politicians, "It can kill not one or two." And this beautiful line, Shastri quotes, and I have done a little bit of reading on this, homework on this, and believe me, July 16th, 1945, Oppenheimer named this explosion Trinity. Trinity, Professor Shastri writes in the book, Trinity means Brahma. Oppenheimer was very familiar with Sanskrit. Trinity means Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. And then Oppenheimer, when the explosion took place, there is an argument about it. Some other writers, Western writers, they said, no, it is taken from John Donne's sonnets, the Trinity. It's not that. But then Oppenheimer, in 1965, he was interviewed on the television. And Oppenheimer was asked, "Why did you name it Trinity?" And then he quotes the Gita sloka. Oppenheimer, when the explosion took place, a deafening sound, blinding light, awesome figure of Lord Krishna appeared before him. And he says, he quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, he says, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." That Sanskrit sloka, not being familiar with it, I asked one of our distinguished scholars, Dr. Per Ravi Kumar, quoting this sloka, which is in all international studies books carry this sloka. Then I asked Mr. Ravi Kumar, what is the meaning of this? He said, the meaning is, I am time, I am destroyer, I am sustainer, I am creator. This is what Lord Krishna said to Arjuna. And this is what Oppenheimer quoted. Now, when in 1965 Oppenheimer was asked, Dr. Shastri quotes all this, "Did you really quote the Bhagavad Gita, from the Bhagavad Gita?" Oppenheimer said, "We knew the world would not be the same after the nuclear explosion. A few people laughed, a few people cried, most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince Arjuna that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form. He says, I am become death, the destroyer." Now this is one side of it. Professor Shastri begins the first chapter with this. As he proceeds, Professor Shastri makes a very interesting suggestion. He is very cautious about it. The suggestion is that India must generate nuclear power. And he quotes figures. There are countries like France which produce 75% of electricity is produced by nuclear reactors. US 20%. India a mere 3.5%. And Professor M.N. Shastri, he is very cautious. Being an academic, he says, I am very cautious about this. This is Janus-faced. The last paragraph he says, this is Janus-faced. I am presenting facts. I end this narrative with a word of caution. The nuclear genie is seen both as a destroyer of life and a potential energy provider. The fate of the world hinges on how diligently the society bridles the genie and guides it on the path of energy security. And this afternoon, he sent me an email. 2014, International Energy Association. It said, Professor Shastri said, some people may find fault with me, like Dr. A.S. Sharma, for suggesting that nuclear reactors must be started in India. He didn't mention your name though. Then he says, this is the email he sent. India has to so hugely expand nuclear power along with its entire power system to bring electricity to 300 million people who are not supplied electricity. 300 million people, and move away from coal, according to a study by the International Energy Agency. India in the coming years must generate 15 times more energy through nuclear reactors. That is the suggestion made by IEA. Professor Shastri says, my mind is open and therefore I have placed the facts before you. This is a small and beautiful book. This function today is to honor a great scientist of Andhra University who continues to write, who continues to work, and who continues to provoke thought. Any association like this, any organization like this, the purpose is not to make a case for anything, but to provoke thought, to provoke discussion. It's my pleasure and privilege to request the proud Vice Chancellor of Andhra University. I say proud because it is Professor Shastri whose book you are releasing, sir. And I would request you kindly to release the book. One of the most distinguished civil servants India has produced, a man who could have lived in absolute comfort, a selfless civil servant, a very reputed civil servant, Dr. A. Sharma, will kindly release the bulletin of the Center for Policy Studies of August 2nd, in which Dr. Shastri's 14th article appears. I would request Subbarao Garu to present a bouquet to Mr. M.K. Kumar of Sacham Offset Imprints for helping us with excellent publication work. As students, we literally swore by Austin, and Law College and Supreme Court of India, all courts. Austin died recently, and in 2011 we sent a copy of a bulletin in which we quoted him, Austin's observation on India's constitution. And believe me, in 1 month, in his own hand, he wrote a letter from the United States. I think that is something, we don't want any awards or any publicity for that matter, but we carried that letter from Granville Austin in this issue, very treasurable letter. So I thank Sri Sharma Garu for sparing his time. He has his grandchildren from US. Sharma Garu, you can tell your son one joke which I often say. Grandchildren and grandparents gel very well these days because the enemy is common. That's what this. That's because the enemy is common. Therefore, there may not be any enemy there, but very nice of you to have spared your time. To the Vice Chancellor, I am very, very grateful because this function would not have been possible but for his instant support when we shifted from that place to here. Vice Chancellor Garu, kindly accept our very grateful thanks to you. Subbarao Garu, he has not been keeping well. The summer, the heat, both political and weather, has taken a lot of toll, and then Mr. Subbarao is a very tired man, and but he never says no to me right from 1955 when I was his teammate, when he was my skipper. Thank you very much for, despite strain and all that, and it is very gracious of you to have. I request you to take over the proceedings.
And if this function had been held in the public library, much as the sheen and the gloss would have been lost, because this is Shastri's soul, this is Shastri's heart, and this is Shastri's heart also. Therefore, that this book release should take place in the Andhra University in the august and distinguished presence of the Vice Chancellor adds not only significance to it, but also is proper. It is legitimate, it is legal and proper. Therefore, I thank him for this very generous gesture. So this morning, I spoke to Mr. Shastri, and in his booming baritone voice, he said, "How are you, Mr. Subbarao?" I was surprised. And then he said, "Sir, your voice sounds very strong." He said, "That's the only part of my body that is strong." Sense of humor even that at 90. I mean, this is and that inspired me to come over here this evening. Otherwise, I would have stayed at home. I'm only saying this because here is an individual who is a tireless crusader, who believes even as a knowledgearian that he should share his knowledge with others. And interestingly, Mrs. Prasanna Kumar read out an email. He says Mr. Shastri is keeping his grandson updated on various aspects, which means that he is pursuing everything much ahead of his own grandchildren. That is ageless, tireless, timeless. That's an individual. Andhra University, we are all proud of being the students at Andhra University, and that we had the good fortune of being students here in a university which produces giants like him is itself a matter which we should all be proud about. And that university again is keeping up the traditions, and our distinguished Vice Chancellor is contributing immensely for the revival of the glorious spirit of the Andhra University. Well, I didn't want to say much, but just to give you an impression that I'm down but not out, and therefore I'm here this evening. And I hope this will be an encouragement for me to take a more vigorous activity subject to the restrictions imposed by the doctors and me. And I'm very happy to be here. Ambassadors are here, professors are here, distinguished civil servants are here, and what an audience. I think this is the richest tribute that we can pay to one of the most distinguished professors of the university. And your presence adds a color and also grace and distinction to this talk. When we think about Shastri's contribution, it is something immense, immeasurable, and invaluable so far as the university is concerned, so far as the academic world is concerned. I'm saying this because such individuals inspire us, people like us, and people like all of you, to see that there's a lot more to be done, and things are there for all of us to share, shape, and also to share with others. Well, it's also interesting that tomorrow is the day of Ruchi University. It should be 1941, August 6th, was the day in which that lethal bomb was unleashed. He spoke about 6th August, 45. 16. No, 1945, he said.
1940.
Colonel Paul Debate was the man who piloted the aircraft. And then, what happened? 70,000 people disappeared in no time. Perhaps, if it's a war crime, there cannot be a more heinous war crime than America had done it on that day. That's because even in war, you can't kill civilians. Therefore, this is also a war crime. But in Nuremberg, it was not tried, or elsewhere is a different issue altogether with this politics. I'm only saying this because how science can be, and Oppenheimer, being a Jew, is also persecuted in the United States of America. These are all some things which many of the youngsters should know. And my regret again is, whenever I come here, I see only seniors, only aged people, no young people are there. And what's happening to our future? We talk of the great future. India's greatest asset is your youth. Where is that youth? I mean, I think distinguished Vice Chancellor should ensure that at least in meetings like this, youngsters come and take a leaf out of the book of such eminent writers as Professor Shastri. Sir, I'm appealing to you, not for my own this thing, but for the sake of posterity, for the sake of preserving this priceless heritage that we have. And if you are able to inculcate at least 100 of your students to participate in this kind of activity, I'm sure the youth will be on the right track and will learn. Sir, I don't want to say anything more. I only wanted to say these few words. One is to thank Professor Rajgaru for his kindness, and also for Prasanna Kumar, Dr. Prasanna Kumar, for persuading me to come over here this evening. And as all of you, I thought just to convey a message that nothing is so radically wrong with me, and therefore I've chosen to speak a few words. And Professor Sharma's, Dr. Sharma's presence is also a source of inspiration. He's a doctor and professor because he has obtained a doctorate from any university or not, I'm not sure. But he's called day before yesterday. He just saw me and told me, Subbarao, take care of your health, because the problem which you have is something you have to carefully look into. Don't exempt yourself too much. I thank him for his sane and sage advice, and I should certainly follow it. His presence also adds luster to this. And I see so many of you here. I'm delighted by that. We still have the fire in the belly, if you can call it that way, because unless we set an example for the youth, things are not going to really happen in this country. And having said this, I would now request Sri Sharma Garu to speak to us on this occasion.
Professor Prasanna Kumar and very distinguished friends. Before I go on to the book and the subject, since we have made references to Professor M.N. Shastri, I thought I would record my feelings. He has just entered his 90th year. Since we have got two persons very closely associated with cricket, Sri D.V. Subbarao Garu and Professor Prasanna Kumar, who was a commentator during my time in the university, 2 sixers, and Professor M.N. Shastri will be in his century. So that reminded me, long ago in the year 2004, Antigua. It was a match against England, West Indies, and Brian Lara hit a brilliant 400, a world record. So that means he must have entered his 90s 4 times, and he achieved his 4. Every time he achieved a century with ease. He hit sixers and fours. So let us all pray to God today that may Professor M.N. Shastri Garu, like Brian Lara, achieve 4 times, and ultimately realize the kind of works he has really authored. I was present on one occasion earlier when I think his book was released. I think he was also present at the time in the other venue. Yeah. Now coming back to this subject, nuclear genie. I still remember when I was a student way back in Andhra University in nuclear physics department. Once I went to the library, Andhra University library, and I was trying to locate one particular book. So when I was reading that, I found a very interesting howler. That is, the word nuclear became unclear. Exactly the same letters, but got rearranged. So I used to tell all my friends, see, nuclear is always unclear. And then I can tell you 1962 was the year. So today we are in 2014. Still it's unclear to me, and I think it's unclear to the world also. Now, it is very coincidental that Hiroshima Day is tomorrow, and today we are actually releasing this book. Now, genie in Arab mythology, it is a smokeless but scorching spirit, harmless as long as it is bottled. That is exactly that. Now, genie description of nuclear power is highly appropriate because it's apparently beneficial but potentially dangerous. As long as an accident doesn't take place, the probability is very low. But if an accident ever takes place, it is disastrous not only territorially, extensively, but also across the generations, because it attacks it destroys the genes and cancerous diseases, even today in Hiroshima and Nagasaki you find people suffering from cancer. The world has witnessed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic weapons, 69 years ago. Then we saw the 3 Mile Island. We saw Chernobyl in Russia. In a Chernobyl accident, they constructed a dome because they couldn't clean up the site, the radioactive debris. And the Russians did not have money to construct the dome, so they collected donations from other countries like Canada and all that. And the dome broke recently, and now they're constructing a metal dome. And one of my friends, one lady, she went to Russia. See, when you go to Russia, Moscow and other places, you will know that wherever you go, whichever shop you visit, there will be long queues. Even for a toothbrush or a toothpaste, there will be long queues. So this lady went to some shop somewhere in Russia. And when she went to the shops, she found there were no crowds at all. She wanted to buy something, some eats, some vegetables, no crowds, no queues. So I believe she went and asked somebody, I'm surprised, because Russia, everything is long queues. Why is it so quiet here? They said it's very close to Chernobyl. Nobody buys anything here. Now subsequent to Chernobyl was Fukushima, March 2011. You'll be surprised, till today, the Japanese have spent about $18 to $20 billion to clean up. And today Fukushima is belching out radioactive water into Pacific Ocean and the groundwater sources. And any day there can be a meltdown and an explosion in Fukushima. The reaction has not stopped. It's like a monstrosity. So Fukushima is still active and people are watching. In fact, when you mentioned about the International Atomic Energy Agency, I have written to the director of the International Atomic Energy Agency saying that they have failed in their duty to keep the world informed about what is happening in Fukushima and what kind of safety is required. According to the latest estimates, it will take more than 50 years to clean up Fukushima. It's a General Electric reactor. It will take a very long time. The other day, California, San Onofre nuclear power plant, they closed it down. It's an active power plant. America has got 104 nuclear power plants, 75% of which are leaching radioactive water into the groundwater sources. And the San Onofre, California, where it was closed, 2 days ago, I read a report. It will take 20 years for them. It's a very, very optimistic estimate. 20 years for them to clean it up, and they will require about $5 to $6 billion. So that is the kind of technology we are talking about. So when you say genie, one should understand. I think that is a correct description. Now, coming back, I think Professor M.N. Shastri has also mentioned, I think it's very interesting to go back to the old, the timeline. 7th of December 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I don't know whether some of you must be knowing, the Japanese came right up to Kohima in India. There is a memorial in Kohima where the soldiers fought the Japanese, and there is a very, very moving moment of the stone there. They say, for your tomorrow, we have given our lives today. So that Kohima, more or less around the same time, Pearl Harbor, 1941. And 16/7/1945. See, the moment Pearl Harbor happened, luckily the Americans had all the German scientists. Oppenheimer was a German, and Enrico Fermi, Italian. These are all great physicists. So quickly they gathered all the physicists, all the nuclear engineers together, and they set up what is known as the Manhattan Project under Oppenheimer. It's a very secret project, and they started working on the atom bomb, fission bomb. And on 16th of July 1945, they conducted the first test in Mexico. That is the Trinity test. They called it Trinity test. And on the 6th of August 1945, Hiroshima was dropped. 2-3 days later, Nagasaki was bombed. Now, Robert Oppenheimer, surprisingly, was a very well-read person. He's not only a nuclear scientist, but also a very well-read person. And he studied Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. He studied Bhagavad Gita. Not many of us would have done that. But he was building a bomb which he knew would bring destruction. So he felt very guilty. And he always used to go back to Bhagavad Gita and quote from there. There are many, many quotations. You quoted one. Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. Now when he looked at the Trinity test, it was a flash. For the first time in the world, they saw a nuclear explosion, like our Pokhran 1 and Pokhran 2. They found this huge flash. So he says, he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, Sanskrit, in the original Sanskrit. If the radiance of 1,000 suns were to burst at once into the sky, that would be like the splendor of the mighty one. Surprisingly, the sun has hydrogen bombs, not fission bombs. Sun is a place where fusion takes place. That's why we are getting all this solar energy. We have not yet, the world has not yet perfected fusion bombs. In Pokhran 2, we tried a very, very small fusion bomb. But hydrogen bombs are still rare. What we see today are fission bombs and fission reactors, power reactors. Now, when he saw this, when the entire destruction took place, Oppenheimer felt very guilty. And he tried to find false solace from Bhagavad Gita. So he says, in battle, in the forest, at the precipice, in the mountains, on the dark great sea, in the midst of javelins and arrows, in sleep, in confusion, in the depths of shame, the good deeds a man has done before defend him. So you may do anything bad, but somewhere you have done a good deed, that will defend you. You know, he thought that his good deeds previously would defend, but actually never. I think Oppenheimer is always, unfortunately, created with this destructive power of nuclear technology. Now, I just gave you a flavor at that time. People who made the atom bomb, you know, they're the best scientists in the world. Feynman. If you go to Pages bookstall here, there is a beautiful book on Feynman. Sorry, Mr. Feynman, you're joking or something, you know. It's a fantastic book where Feynman was a part of the Manhattan Project. He got the Nobel Prize later. Now, today, 69 years later, where are we? Say, Professor Prashant Kumar, when he telephoned me, he said, you're a student of nuclear physics, so you should come. But then I'm sure he didn't tell me, I have filed 2 PILs against nuclear power in the Supreme Court which are being heard. One against Kodamkulam and the other against nuclear power in general on the liability, civil liability legislation. So I am fighting those cases. But it's not as though I have not been associated with nuclear power. I was Advisor Energy and Planning Commission. I was Secretary Power. I was Chairman of the Nuclear Power Pricing Committee of the Atomic Energy Commission. So in a way, I was associated with the growth of nuclear power sector over a very long time. But I have seen the good and bad of nuclear power. Now today, it's something very scary when you look at the figures. And I've written articles, extensive articles. I've written in Japanese Times. I have written articles there, at least, trying to awaken the people of Japan after Fukushima. Today there are, when you produce nuclear power, you use the fuel uranium-235, that is the fissile material. That is not available in nature. You get uranium-238, which is not radioactive. It contains just a very, very small percentage of uranium-235, which is fissile, radioactive. So what they do is they increase the percentage by a centrifugal process. And that is what we use in our nuclear reactors. So when nuclear reactions take place, it actually produces plutonium, which can be used for generating more power,
or it can also be used as a weapon grade fuel for nuclear atomic bombs. Now today the world has 17,295 weapons. One weapon is enough to destroy probably a fairly large part of the world planet. 17,295 weapons, out of which 25%, that means about 5,000, can be straight away used to destroy. And the remaining, you have to prepare them for a day or two. China has got 250, our border, our neighbor, 250. Pakistan has 120, perhaps slightly more than what India has. And North Korea, not a very happy situation, has got, at least according to estimates, 10 weapons. Now, in addition to that, there are 436 nuclear power reactors in operation, and another 300 are coming, and in all they produce 75 tons of plutonium every year. See, when you produce power, you are producing plutonium, which adds to the tensions. Both Pakistan and India imagine plutonium being produced, and your weapon material is increasing. And that means each of these, a few grams of plutonium can be like a Nagasaki, Hiroshima bomb. So we are living in a very scary kind of a situation. And somebody asked Einstein, the great scientist, he said, Professor Einstein, he was in Princeton at the time. He came away from Austria and he came to Princeton. So he said, Professor Einstein, how do you think will be the Third World War? Because that was, Second World War was over. How will the Third World War will be fought like? So Professor Einstein said, look, I don't know anything about the Third World War, but I can tell you about the Fourth World War. That will be fought with sticks and spears. Then we will not be civilized by the time everything would be destroyed. So probably we are in that situation today with Pakistan, China, our neighbors, and you see, read the papers, what is happening every day. And China is collaborating in a very big way with Pakistan in the name of nuclear power. And from Pakistan, it is a matter of few seconds to deliver a nuclear bomb. They've got the Gauri missile, which has got a range of about 2,600 kilometers. And they get support from North Korea, of all the countries, and China, Pakistan. Now, this is the situation. So, I think that a book like this, Professor Shastri's Nuclear Genie, it is very important such publications are there today in the public domain. Because people should know what is happening. People should know the benefits and the costs. To present benefits only will mislead the people. Today what is happening is there is a misinformation campaign. I would blame the government. I have written letters to the Prime Minister saying that under Section 4 of the Right to Information Act, you are supposed to keep a lot of information in the public domain on your own. We don't have to apply for it. But unfortunately, the Nuclear Power Corporation, they just don't keep it. I still remember one person from Madurai telephoned me last year, anonymous. He said, sir, in Kudamkulam, there is an accident, a cable accident, and there were sparks, and people are injured. Kindly do something about it. And Nuclear Power Corporation actually is hiding it. So I immediately wrote to the Prime Minister, because Prime Minister is the minister in charge of atomic energy. And I have written to the Secretary of Atomic Energy saying, please investigate. Public should know about this. No response. The Nuclear Power Corporation gave a very wishy-washy reply. Then simultaneously, there was a whistleblower in South Korea, and he complained, saying that one of their nuclear power stations has fake parts, fabricated parts which are not, quality is not certified. Immediately, as soon as the whistleblower made the complaint, the president of South Korea, a lady, she closed down the power station and ordered an inquiry. Very surprisingly, they found that huge companies, big companies like Hyundai and all, they were all involved in this scam. And they were merely, supplying parts which are actually based on false certification, quality certification. And while this was happening, within 6 months, another whistleblower in South Korea said, look, there is another power station where there are fabricated parts. Be careful. So they closed down the second nuclear power plant. And I still remember the president of South Korea made a statement. She said, look, South Korea is heavily dependent on nuclear electricity, unlike India. See, India, we depend on nuclear electricity to the extent of about 2.7%. Only 2.7% of our electricity is from nuclear. It's very, very small. Whereas in South Korea, it is 26%. But the South Korean president said, look, I am ordering closure of 4 reactors. I am more worried about the safety of my people than supplying power to them. Let us save energy, let us save electricity, let us be austere. So for about 1.5 years, they investigated the whole thing. I think now they are trying to reopen some of the reactors. Whereas in India, when I pointed, when this happened, we had a suspicion that in Kudamkulam there were some fabricated parts. The reason for that was the Russians who supplied parts to Kudamkulam, there was a news report that the procurement agency for these parts was involved in a corruption scam in Russia. And the news is that the same procurement scam touched Bulgaria, Iran, India and China. The only power station in India is the Kudamkulam. So we said, look, that person is arrested. The Russians have arrested that person. So please investigate. But they won't do it. But after a great deal of pressure, many of us, several people, we questioned Atomic Energy Commission. Then slowly they said, we have found 4 valves defective. This is what exactly happened in South Korea. Then later, after about 3 or 4 months of persuasion, they said, oh yes, there was a cable accident. Which Madurai person telephoned me. Hey, there is a cable accident and there is an accident. Some people are injured and all that. Today in India, Rajasthan, there is an atomic power plant. And so there was an accident. And it was all hushed up. And it wouldn't have come out into the public domain. So these workers got exposed. So they didn't get any compensation. So they went to the district collector of the district, I think Barmer or something. And they said, look, we are not giving compensation, we are all exposed, radioactivity. So then that is how it came in the newspapers. So very important, in any civilized country, transparency, public disclosure, take people into confidence. See, if there are problems, discuss with the people. I think this is my campaign. This is my campaign against the Department of Atomic Energy with which I have been associated. So I hope, this kind of a book, this Nuclear Genie, will at least generate a discussion. I think in India our problem is that we do not have a discussion in the public domain on many issues. I hope this will generate such a discussion. Thank you.
A great orator, Professor Prasanna Kumar Garu. A very well-known bureaucrat, former Secretary, Energy Department, Sri Sharma Garu, and eminent and very accomplished people sitting opposite to the dais. Media friends, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening all of you. So at this occasion, I am very grateful to Professor Prasanna Kumar for inviting me to associate and release the book written by the great teacher, Professor M.N. Shastri. And his son, Mr. Srikanth, and myself were contemporaries. He did his chemical engineering during 71-76. I did electronics and communication engineering during the same time. He was a cricketer. I was a weightlifter. And I could meet a couple of times the great scientist and Professor M.N. Shastri. Even those days, he was a well-known scientist and a great teacher. And he is not only teacher, a great writer. You just imagine at this age of 90, he could bring out a beautiful book on nuclear genie. I know how much difficult it is to write a book. I have written 11 textbooks. On the average, each textbook consumes 4,000 hours. So at this age of 90, it's very difficult to imagine to spend such a great time. And this man, Professor M.N. Shastri Garu, as mentioned by Professor Prasanna Kumar Garu, those days he was one of the best teachers. Generally, a best teacher is not a good researcher, and vice versa. A good researcher is not a good teacher. But he has both the mix of good qualities of teacher and a best qualities of researcher, and a great writer. And after looking at this book, really, I think he has brought out beautifully, very systematically, on the nuclear energy, as Professor Sharma mentioned. This nuclear power, yes, this very small level India is using, 2.7 or 3.5. Very astonishingly, this nuclear power buttons, have you come across? Nuclear button cells. These are very often used in your heart pacemakers. I don't know how many of you have come across. And the advantage of such a button cell, power nuclear button cell in your heart pacemaker, which is implant, not external plant, gives a life of 15 years. You don't have to replace button. But other batteries, if you insert in that, you have to replace once in 5 years approximately. And also there is a danger found in the nuclear buttons. Sometimes there are a few cases where the button started leaking in a couple of years. Had there been no implant, he should have survived for a couple of years, but he died just because of leakage. This is the biggest problem. So, Professor Sharma rightly pointed out, you can use nuclear power extensively for all positive and useful purposes. At the same time, you have to be prepared to counter its negative effects. That's very dangerous. And when I'm going through this book, titles, though this book is small in size but beautiful content, I think he brought in terms of some 16 chapters. He started with the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Very interestingly, one of my scholars is working in Hiroshima right now in Japan. Of course, he did his PhD in mathematics here. And whenever he comes, he keeps describing how the people are there. Even today, they are being terrorized. Even though destruction happened more than 6 decades back. Then how Soviet Union started their race with the nuclear energy, then UK, France and China, then how India entered into the race. And also beautifully, Pakistan's nuclear Walmart, he has titled. Then as mentioned by Sri Sharma ji, North Korea on and off, nuclear quest. So beautifully brought out various things in orderly fashion, and this is a book to read for everyone to know what is happening in the world regarding nuclear energies. And I'm very happy to release this book on his 90th birthday. I wish him many, many happy returns of the day, though it is in his absence. We wish him to be very healthy and prosperous, live long, cross 100 years, as mentioned by our great people. Then very happy to see all of you on this great occasion. He has provided me the opportunity to meet all elders who are very highly respected people here. This is a very big occasion to meet all of you, otherwise we would not have got it. So I thank Professor Prasanna Kumar for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Distinguished President Sri D.V. Subbarao sir, Honorable guests on the dais, Professor G.S.N. Raju sir, beloved Vice Chancellor, a social engineer, Dr. E.S. Sharma sir, Director, Center for Policy Research, Professor A. Prasanna Kumar sir, distinguished gathering, ladies and gentlemen, press and media. It's a special honor and a privilege for me to have had this opportunity on this evening, on a great occasion like this, in which a galaxy of stars are present. To begin with, as a part of my duty, Professor M.N. Shastri Garu in absentia. Thanks to technology, we could hear him today, and we could also see at the age of 90, he has been striving hard, relentlessly, to do something to the society by way of contributing articles in the Bulletin, Center for Policy Research, from time to time, and also authoring so many books like this, which is aptly highlighted by Dr. Sharma Garu. The necessity is highlighted by him. And I, on behalf of Gayatri Vidya Parishad, Center for Policy Research, Andhra University, and on behalf of this distinguished gathering, and also on my own behalf, I extend my sincere thanks to Professor M.N. Shastri sir, and on behalf of all of us, I extend best wishes on his 90th birthday. I take this opportunity to express my hearty thanks to our distinguished guest, Dr. E.S. Sharma Garu, who could find time and make himself available for this occasion, brighten this event with his extensive coverage of the subject and highlighting the necessity of books like this. Thank you very much, sir. I must mention my deep sense of gratitude to our beloved Vice Chancellor, Professor G.S.N. Raju sir, for his keen interest and enthusiasm always in occasions like this. And also I take the opportunity to thank the Andhra University for giving us this venue, as highlighted by our director, Professor Prasanna Kumar sir, in a short notice, for its kindness and generosity in in granting permission to use their premises. It's so nice of you. Thank you very much, Raju sir. And also, my thanks are all due to the supporting staff here who have created this ambience, making it available for this. Yes, sir. I take this opportunity to thank our beloved President, Gayatri Vidya Parishad, and President of this session, Sri D.V. Subbarao sir, for accepting to chair this occasion. Thank you very much, sir. It is my privilege to thank Professor A. Prasanna Kumar sir, our Director, Center for Policy Studies, for his continuous untiring efforts to arrange programs like this, which are very useful for the next generation people like us who are attended here at regular intervals, and providing an opportunity to all the interesting Visagites to mingle with, to interact with, to exchange knowledge in different areas. Thank you, Professor Prasanna Kumar sir. It's always great to spend a few minutes in the presence of people like this audience, My humble thanks are all due to this audience for your elegant presence on this occasion. Last but not the least, I will be failing my duties if I do not express my thanks to the press and media for their extensive coverage and all the support they have been rendering to us. Thanks for this opportunity, Mr. President. Good night, all of you.